Goal 1 today, relearning the Acca stroke. Alright, like I said, a lot of us have had time off. Some of us have been paddling with other techniques, other teams. Alright, outrigging included. Alright. Linda.
Actually, see, I'm just warning.
See it for the camera.
And I'm on the flag and I've got to throw my body out. So if I accidentally do that today, just hold on.
Alright, so the goal is to realign with the Acca style, the Acca technique. Obviously, you can put your own flair onto it, okay, afterwards for your own comfort and stuff like that. But what we recommend and are looking for is this. So we're going to start our feet position with inside the boat. Alright, so our preference is an outside foot forward. Alright, outside foot forward. Either having your heel or the front of your foot pushing against the footrest. I see that there. Alright, again, varying to comfort or wherever you need, she can adjust that to where you need. But this is what we're looking for. Alright, the inside leg, if you have the flexibility, it will be tucked back. Alright, if you don't have the flexibility, you have both legs forward or whatever else you need to do to feel comfortable. Alright, the goal here is having our hips and our knees pointed forward to the finish line. Okay? The next bit is our position on the seat, where our hips are. Okay? We sit forward on the seat. We don't sit back like it's a lounge chair. We sit forward on the seat. The reason for this, it allows the hips to be open so that when we are rotating and moving forward into the stroke, we are able to get hip drive, leg drive, pushing the boat forward. Okay? The next part is the positioning of her torso. Alright? At a neutral position, like she is just here. Alright, she's nice and tall. The next bit is we're looking for rotation, but rotation from the hip. Okay, so Jazz, if you could demonstrate that. Rotating from the hip. Alright, you can see this whole section here moves from the hip. Okay, her chest is staying up and she's rotating forward. Now Jazz, if you can demonstrate chest down and rotating forward. Alright, now chest up and rotating forward. Alright, so what we look for in the Acca technique, it's more of a modified outrigger stroke. Okay, we will rotate forward, focus on rotation from the hip with a slight hinge forward. Okay, we're not just rotation, and we're not all hinge, we are a combination of both. Does that make sense? Jazz, if you can demonstrate a few times. Alright, rotating forward, giving that chest up, slight hinge from the hip. Alright, now I'm going to ask Jazz to do a full hinge at the hip while trying to rotate. Yeah. Now, if you can hold at the bottom position, if you see right here, guys, it might look good in photos and stuff like that, okay, but she's overstretched and may not be getting that stable platform that we're looking for. Okay, so go back to doing it the actual way. Right, now go back to doing it the overextended way. Okay, you can see the overextended way looks great, but it's not efficient. You're overstretching yourself. Okay, and you know, some people say like, oh, why does this guy look so comfortable, etc. But I'm like here, like really going at it. It's because you're not stable. All right, if you try to do anything without stability, you're not going to get the performance or result that we're looking for. Does that make sense? Any questions on all that? No? Great. Can you grab your paddle? Now, bringing all that in. Alright, we've now put a paddle in Jazz's hand, which is very dangerous because she's very powerful with the paddle in her hand. So Jazz is going to go and set up for the stroke. Alright, now you can see she's rotated from the hip, the chest is up, alright, her lats are extending forward just here, alright, and she's setting up right above the water line. Okay, so the water line is probably about there on the boat. Okay, this is one problem I see a lot of people aren't doing. They're not setting up right above the water line. A lot of people are doing this. They're setting up here. All right, so that when they're actually going for that stroke, they are two things. They are doing a huge splash All right, but also by the time they get there, all right, the blade is no longer positive. Okay, so set up above the waterline now. Okay, and now go for your stroke. All right, she's in the water now. Okay, and this is what we look for as well, a positive blade angle at the catch. Okay, if you're sitting up too high, you're going to be entering the water there. Okay, I'll talk about blade angles in a second, but this is what we're looking for. The full blade buried underwater here with the blade positive. Does that make sense? Cool? Alright, let's talk blade angles. So blade angles, positive, neutral, negative. Alright, as we paddle, it is going to go through that whole spectrum. Alright, but what we want to focus on is as the blade starts to go negative, we release, we get back to the front. Alright, we don't want to press all the way to the back just like this. We focus on, like I said earlier, full blade buried at the catch, follow through. As it starts to go negative, we're out and we're setting up for the next stroke. Yeah? So 3 blade angles, positive, neutral, negative. Most of our stroke happens up here at the front while it's positive. Okay? For those of you that are catching at a neutral, okay, you're still contributing to the boat, but if you want to find more power and move this boat even more, work on that blade angle. Okay, and we'll work on that today in the water. Cool? Alright, now Jazz that's the setup. You can show us the exit, Jazz. So where we're going to exit is about here at the hip. So the blade will be at the hip, but the bottom hand will be about mid-thigh. It's roughly where we exit. Okay? This is important because a lot of people are exiting when their hand is at the hip. We exit with the blade at the hip, but bottom hand at mid-thigh, just here. Does that make sense? Reason being, it ties into what I said earlier. We focus on the catch, full blade at the catch, and we follow through. As we start to go negative, we release. Other teams, other clubs, they will go further. They'll go way beyond, okay? But that's not what we look for. We focus on being more efficient, more effective from the front, okay? So if you think about it, we actually have a shorter stroke than other clubs, but we're more effective when we're in the water. Does that make sense? So it's not all about super long stroke, way past back here, okay? Focus on the front, be efficient. Grab the boat, grab the water, move the boat, push forward. All right, push that boat forward, move that boat forward. Okay, it's a simple stroke compared to other strokes out there. All right, but our methodology is to keep it super simple. All right, so that it's easy to learn, and then as you put more and more time into it, you can master it and get better at it. Yeah, nothing too complicated. All right, okay, exit. When we're exiting, one thing we haven't really touched on too much recently in recent seasons is feathering. A lot of people are just taking the paddle out, right, and missing that. But what we want to start doing this season is feathering that blade so that when we do exit, the blade kind of cuts through the wind just like that. Okay, again, giving us that little bit, a little bit more efficiency with the blade moving. Because if you can imagine, right, if you're paddling and exiting and your blade's like that, what's happening here?
When the wind like this,
yeah,
causing it.
There's wind resistance on a paddle, and a few of us exit like this. The blade comes out, slaps wind, right? It may not sound like a lot, but if it's happening to 20 people and we're paddling into a wind, all right, we're not going to be as efficient. All right, we have seen in the past that when it's windy, Acca doesn't perform. Right, so we want to change that. Okay, so to do this, to feather, it's in the wrists, top wrist, bottom wrist. So if you want to break your wrists this way, yep, you can see she's cutting through the air, all right, and then she's again setting up the wrists again to set up at the stroke. All right, so this is one thing we're going to practice today when we're on the water, getting that feather, all right, so that we're not causing any drag in the air. Cool? Any questions? No? Awesome. All right. Thank you, Jazz.
Yay!
Yep.